So should I start with a little bit of background, or jump right into Georgetown days?
Yeah, we'd like
Yeah,
to hear
but
the Georgetown days for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess going back, grew up Albany, New York, upstate New York. Not the hotbed of baseball talent, but went down to Georgetown. Spent 4 years there. Played a lot as freshman and a sophomore. Didn't put up like huge numbers, but we got a lot of ABs. Got to play a lot in the field, and then junior senior year is really where I kind of like had some good years. So senior year had probably my best baseball year kind of my life. Had it pretty well. Let the Big East in slugging, and felt like there may be a shot to get drafted and kind of go from there. Filling out the questionnaires and all that stuff. Later, I found out everyone fills out the questionnaire. It's not that special. Anyway, so finished up my senior year. Had a good year, but also lined up a job. At the end of my senior year, I was very broke, and just ready to not be broke. So basically, at the end of the senior year, I had some interest from independent ball teams, and but I also had a job lined up in management consulting. So kind of looked at those two options and said, I know what the indie ball grind is like. I have a lot of buddies, even in the minor leagues, in the indie ball grind, and at that point in my life, it was just not what I wanted to do. And quite simply, I was pretty done with baseball, right? Like, Jimmy, and it's just like so much baseball all the time for those 4 years. It's not only the 4 years at Georgetown, spring, fall games, but it's also all the summer leagues. I played summer league every single season. At the end of the senior year, and I was done with baseball. Like, I had fun my senior year, but it was just like the toll it takes on you as a human being is a lot. So, I decided to go a different path.
yeah,
And the the being broke thing, I can relate to, like this pressure to, like, oh, I need to start making some real money and move on. It's just interesting to hear the different perspectives of people, because there's people that didn't have near your background or your success. I'm looking at your numbers here. You hit 344 in your senior year, four or five bombs, and like 47 RBI. I mean, like, you could have gone on. You could have gone on and continued and did the grind, and you opted not to. And then, there's guys with maybe half your resume that hold on to that dream and continue to be broke and go for it. For you to kind of just say, no, I got my baseball in, and to make that decision is, it's interesting to hear anyway.
yeah.
Yeah,
I can also kind of like understand that, because I mean, I went to Menlo's, which is like I don't know, it's a small business school. You went to Georgetown, which is a big academic school as well. So I'm sure your like baseball, school, work balance was just off the charts in terms of having no free time at all. And then probably the disappointment that you had of not getting drafted, um, kind of just pushed you a little bit into that direction of taking that route towards going the business route.
yeah, for sure. And I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone who decides to go the indie route. Like, I'm not saying that at all. But you're right, Jimmy. Like, going to Georgetown gave me an opportunity to after school have a lot of different things that I could do. And honestly, that's the reason I chose Georgetown. And looking at Ivy League, like, that was the reason I went that route, to have those opportunities after the degree. But to your point, Dave, like, I just kind of got to a point where I was ready to try something new, and like you said, life is all about baseball, and I know you guys can relate. Like, the first 22 years of my life was almost fully devoted to baseball, right? Like you said, Jimmy, like, Georgetown is pretty demanding academically, but let's be real. Like, people go to those schools to play baseball, and like, yeah, you do academics, and they're hard. Don't get me wrong, but 22 years of my life, 100% devoted to baseball, and quite honestly, like, I identified as a baseball player, right? Like, even in my family, a group of friends, like, I was the baseball guy, right? Like, I was the guy that played Division I baseball. Like, that was my full identity. And at 22, I said, I think I'm more than just a baseball player, right? Like, I want to contribute to society in a business sense, but also just find out what my other interests are, right? Which is hard for a lot of baseball players. And I know I talk to a lot of guys all the time, and they say, like, after baseball ends, like, they don't really know what to do themselves, right? And I think this is a good segue into, like, what I'm doing now, and
Yeah.
the different path. But I just wanted to figure out what my other interests are, and looking back about it.
And from what I know or what I've read through your profile and our discussions, it seems to me like you've been in the same industry since graduating. Is that right? So
Yep.
So this was like, you already knew what you were doing when you were in college, and like, this is what I want to go do? Or was this, because most people don't, even when they graduate, they're like, still don't know what they want to do. And that's often why they continue with baseball and go overseas sometimes too, is kind of prolonging that. But I'm just curious to hear how you ended up getting into the industry that you did, maybe even talk about what you are doing, or what you started off as, and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, quite honestly, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and that's why I picked the industry I picked. So, to give background, I guess, I went straight into management consulting right after my senior year, after I graduated. Quite simply, it was because consulting goes across a lot of different industries. So, for those that may not know what consulting is, basically, I joined a firm that helps other businesses with their problems, right? And that's kind of the simplest definition. We were business doctors. So we would go into a client, we'd be solving a hyper-specific problem for them. And it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. But basically, you solve that one problem, and then you move on to a new client. And that could be in the same industry, that could be in a different industry. So for me, when I first heard about consulting, I was like, oh, that's great, because I could just sample all these different industries, all these different clients. And then I was like, oh, well, after doing that for a couple of years, maybe I'll figure out what my real passion is, and go from there. So I joined a consulting firm right after university. Honestly, they paid well, and it was an interesting way to see different industries. I did that in Washington D.C. for about a year and a half, and I moved to New York City for about 2 years. I switched consulting firms, but generally the same thing. And then in 2018, I started my own business, and we kind of go into that process there. But consulting is something I kind of fell into. I'm very happy I did, because it gave me a lot of skills, and it allowed me to see all those different clients and industries. But I chose it because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you always like to make it sound like you had a master plan, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. Go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it looks like you found exactly what you want to be doing, and now like you've started and are running like a successful company. You're able to travel the world, work remotely. And I just remember when you came to us, like wanting to go play baseball overseas, you're just like, yeah, I run this company. I don't really need much money. I just want a cool place to live and play baseball. It's like, well, that's an easy sell.
Yeah, no, I remember that first call was definitely fun. And like, I'm sure I'm a little bit different than most guys that come to you guys, but yeah, I mean, like, if you told me at 22 what I'd be doing today, I would be like, no, you're lying.
Yeah.
Like, there's no possible way. And I was even thinking about this yesterday when I was thinking about this chat. I was like, this is like a crazy convergence of all these weird things in my life. But like, I feel like it's the right circle of life. You know what I mean? Like, not only am I working, not only am I playing baseball, but I'm also traveling and living in a different culture, which is like three of the biggest things in my life. And like, to have them all happen at the same time is just I'm just super grateful that all this stuff came together. And I mean, honestly, you guys are a huge part of that. Like, I wouldn't have this opportunity if you guys weren't behind me and kind of pointing me in the right direction. So a lot of great people at this point, which is great.
Dude, you're living the life. There's so many guys on our website, like people probably are getting sick of me preaching this kind of stuff, but over the years, I've witnessed imports come and go through the club that we deal with. And then of course, vicariously through our members around. And, you get a variety. You get those that are like utilizing every spare second they have while they're overseas, because there's a lot of downtime. And then you got others that are like just chilling and enjoying their time and not really focused on what they're doing after baseball. Maybe some of them already have it figured out going into it, but a lot of them don't have it figured out going into it. So I'd be curious how you got into consulting as somebody that didn't actually have a successful business of your own at that time. So here you are giving people advice about your business, about how to do business, but you haven't done business yourself. So I'm kind of curious for anyone listening that maybe, hey, I want to go do what Steve does. How do I get into consulting? How do I start my own consulting firm? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you even get into that and what kind of skills you need to at least get started and get in a company like the one that you did before you go and start your own consulting firm?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a great question. And it's funny because, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but going to Finkstonball and Prague Baseball Week, I would tell all these guys, and they're like quite honestly, like most of them are a little bit younger than me, right? I'm 30 and they're 22, 23, 24, whatever. And I tell them about what I'm doing. And I was like, oh yeah, I have this company or whatever. They're like, dude, how do you even get started doing that, right? And what I would tell them is basically like, hey, if you want to start a business, if you want to sell yourself, right, you have to have some type of skill, right? Like that's base level foundation. You have to have something that is valuable to someone else, right? So the first step would be obtaining skills that if you're interested in it, great. I would say like just make sure it's valuable to someone else. Like it's great if you love drawing, and there are great graphic design jobs, but like make sure it's valuable in the market, right? So number one, I would say like get some skills that are in demand, and then once you have those skills, you can actually go off and create a business. I think that's step number two. But how to get those skills? I would look for a company or someone that you respect or know they're doing something interesting, and try and shadow them, right? Like apprenticeship is the best way to gain those skills in a real world setting, because it's one thing to go off, and I know there's tons of like courses online, and that's a great place to start, but like it's just like university, right? Like you don't really use anything in university. You learn everything after university and on the job training. So I would suggest to everyone that's interested in that path, find someone that you can chat with, do an apprenticeship with them. Hopefully it's paid if it's a real company. Gain those skills by working with someone else, and then when the time is right and you want to spin it off to your own thing, obviously I can talk about how to do that, but you have the ability to, because you have those skills that are in demand, and someone will pay for them, right? That's business 101. So that's what I told most of the guys. And then to your point, Dave, like some people do it, some people don't, and that's on them at that point. But if you have that information, you can kind of either make use of your free time, which there's a lot of in Euro baseball, or you can play FIFA, which it's all good, but whatever.
Yeah, and those guys that choose the FIFA, I get it too. All right, I was an input once too, and I didn't do any of what I'm preaching. That's kind of why. But I'm just also curious. This is more my own curiosity. How does one get into a consulting firm without that actual experience? Is that is that a normal thing to kind of start off at a ground level and just kind of learn the ropes and work your way up from there?
Yeah, for sure. So my first job, I had no consulting experience. I had like a little bit of, you guys know, you don't really have time to do real jobs in university if you're playing baseball, right? Like you can't do the summer job that everyone can do, go an intern for someone. So like I had a little bit of experience, but just very small. So I just hustled to get my foot in the door, right? Like I honestly sold the firm on me as like a problem solver rather than me as demonstrating experience in X, Y, and Z. And they bought it, which was nice. So I think you just gotta hustle to get your first foot in the door. And they don't expect you to really know anything, to be honest. Like my first job, I barely knew how to use Excel and PowerPoint, like all these basic things that like first day I saw everyone else that came in from these really good schools and like people that are not baseball players and just like really smart. And I was like, oh shit, like I am in the wrong spot. Like they messed up by hiring me. But you learn those skills and like you just start to put together, and then over time it becomes easier. But it's just getting that first foot in the door and use the network, right? Like there's a bunch of guys in this Baseball Jobs Overseas network that can reach out to guys and be like, hey, do you know anyone that has this? I'm looking in this. Like you got to use the network to get the first foot in the door, and that's pretty much all it is.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, no, that's great. I dove into that quite a bit, but I was curious, and I'm sure there's some people listening that are curious. And so when did you decide, all right, and I'm thinking like when I'm looking at this on paper, I'm like, oh, it looks like he had it all figured out from day one. But so now I'm going to ask you, did you start your own consulting firm so that you can work remotely and travel? Because I know prior to playing baseball overseas, you traveled all over the place while working. So I'm just curious if you said, I'm going to start my own consulting firm so that I can travel the world and work remotely, or was that also just kind of fell into it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And so I think it was about 3 years. I was in the 9 to 5 grind, right? Like working in DC, New York, like, just like everybody else, right? And it came from, I went on a 3 week vacation with one of my college roommates to Thailand, actually. So I was living in New York, went on this vacation with my guy, and we got to the last day, and we're sitting on a Thailand, beach, and we're just kind of sitting there, like, drinking a beer or whatever. Like, I'm writing down Jordan I was keeping at the time. I still have it today. And I was thinking about, I was like, I love New York. I love my friends there. My family's there. But like, what am I going back to? Right? Like, I want to continue traveling. Like, this has been such a refreshing 3 weeks. Like, I feel like I'm grown, but like just being able to experience so much in these 3 weeks. Like, what am I going back to? Like, what does my life look like? If I'm doing this for the next 5 to 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. So I wrote down in my journal, I was like, you will find a way to make travel a long-term option, right? Like, I had no idea what that meant at the time. It was just like, I want to do this. Now, from that point until I actually started my own company was about 2.5 years. So a lot of stuff had to happen in that. But I did start the company with the intention of like, this will support my travel and my ability to really just be free, right? It didn't necessarily mean travel for an indefinite amount of time. It allowed me to work wherever I wanted to be and live. So it was started in that intention, but I also was really interested in entrepreneurship and making something of my own, and and going down that route. So yeah, that's how it started. And looking back now, because I had that flexibility, it obviously led me to baseball again, and it allowed me to do a lot of cool things over the last 4.5 years of traveling nonstop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just to list a few: Germany, Czech Republic, England, Hungary, the Netherlands, Georgia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Japan, Colombia, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Mexico, and Canada. And then in Canada, and now France, yeah. But that was prior to baseball, and Canada's the last one on the list from your profile before France. And that's when you just rediscovered baseball. So here you are, like, you're this globetrotter without the baseball. What's that, Jimmy?
Good old Fredericton.
Baby.
New Brunswick.
New Brunswick, baby. It's what turned my whole life around. But no, Dave, you're right. Like, so I spent, I guess, like 4 years, no baseball. And honestly, I didn't play that much baseball after I retired from Georgetown, right? Like, I played in some like softball leagues and like some rec leagues, but like I wasn't training at all and doing anything. But yeah, so I traveled around, lived in Southeast Asia, South America, Europe, whatever. 3 months at a time, 4 months at a time, and that was the next place. And then I was in Mexico, and this thing called COVID hit, and decided to go up to Canada, and kind of I literally slid into the border the last day before they closed it to Americans. But I think it was 24 hours before. So if I took the next flight, I would have been let in. But so I get to New Brunswick, Canada. Shout out Atlanta, Canada. And I was living there for like I guess it was March of 2020, and then I lived there for an entire year. Again, no baseball, just working, doing the whole thing. And it was funny, went out, and I was talking with a guy there, and he was like, "Yeah, so we play some baseball here, and we have this like little team or whatever." He was like, I know you used to play a little bit. Like, would you want to like join our team? And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. Like, I used to play a little bit. Like, I guess so. So I joined the team, and that's kind of what brought me back to baseball. And it was a marked difference between when I left Georgetown and kind of how I felt about baseball versus coming back, fresh eyes 7 years later. I just loved it, man. Like, it was just so much fun. Just playing and like not worrying about getting drafted, not worrying about what my stats are, just like legitimately just having fun again. And shout out to Adam Kerr, who brought me onto the team there in all of Fredericton, New Brunswick, and the Fredericton Astros. And yeah, that's what started the journey. And then obviously a lot of things happened to get me where I am today. But that's what started, man. It's crazy.
So how did you hear about Baseball Jobs Overseas? Was that through AC? Was it shout out Alex Carter?
Shout out AC, my guy. Yeah, so basically started playing in that league up there. I did pretty well, and I think I had a call with AC or something. We were just like catching up, and he was like, "Dude, so you have this business, right? You have this business where you can live anywhere." He was like, "Obviously, you can still play ball, dude, why don't you just combine them? And I was like, I knew he played in Europe, but like, I never really put the dots together like that. And he just like AC Carter, who played Montpellier and a bunch of different Euro teams. He was like, dude, just do that. And I was like, okay, great. But like, I have no idea how to do that. Like, how do you like talk to teams? He was like, don't worry, I'm going to introduce you to the godfather of European baseball, David Burns. And then Jimmy Jensen will be your guy. Like, and that's exactly what he did. We put together the profile and all the behind the scene details before we reach out to you guys. Actually, I don't know if we talked about that, but like I had everything ready to go before I even reached out to you guys. So basically, AC held my hand from day one to getting me signed, basically, and obviously you guys did as well. But that's how I heard about it.
I remember that. I remember like, wow, this guy's on it. Yeah, you and I'm looking at your profile now, and I remember thinking while preparing for this interview, like I've seen it before, but we need to use this as like a template or an example for new guys. Like this is what we're looking for in terms of putting your information, everything out there, not leaving any stones unturned, so that clubs can make an informed decision. So you came prepared, and the profile looks great, and there's lots of cool stuff in here. Also about like little things like, well, not a little thing, but something people might not think of, but like the fundraiser you did for charity for cancer, for kids with cancer and stuff like that. And you raised over 50,000. I mean, that just speaks a lot about your character. And a lot of guys kind of throw their numbers up and think, okay, someone signed me, and the clubs overseas are looking for character as much as they are performance. And so you obviously bring that, and we felt it in Prague and at Finkstonball. I have so many questions. Yeah, go. Sorry, Jimmy, go.
No, you're good. Yeah, but just to kind of reiterate that point, I just remember like, because oftentimes when a guy signs up or reaches out, I'll hop on a phone call with them and I'll answer some of their questions. But I remember with you, like we set up a Zoom call, and then like on the Zoom call, you're super professional. You have everything together. You know exactly what questions to ask, because I mean, I guess you've been talking with AC throughout this whole process. And yeah, like instantly I'm just like, yeah, this is going to be a guy that will definitely get a lot of opportunities to continue to play. Like for one, a D1 guy, like with good numbers. Two, you run your own company, you're kind of self-sufficient. Three, you're just seems like a great person, genuine person who just wants to play ball, help grow the game, and travel.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but yeah, to reiterate your point, I think like with everything in life, you get what you put in, right? So my advice to the guys that are looking at this as an option, it doesn't mean that you have to have everything prepared like before. And look, AC was a tremendous resource. Like he literally, like we had a Google Doc, we go back and forth, you put comments on it. So like, he was a huge help, and that's why it was so, I would say, polished by the time I got to you guys. But for everyone out there, like, get your stuff together, right? Like, it's gonna, and I love you guys, and you guys do a great job. But like, there are a lot of guys out there, and Burnsy and Jimmy are two people, right? So like, you have to be kind of that person that drives it too, right? Like, you guys only have so many hours in the day, so the more ammo that we give you guys as the athletes, like, the better that you can sell us, the more but also just the better that you can kind of have your information out there. So I would definitely say put as much time and effort into creating the profile and then your background as you do into like reaching out to teams and all that stuff. So
100%.
Amen. Jeez. I mean,
now preach to the choir, right?
How many times did we say that? Like, it's all in the profile, really. Like, they can't scout you firsthand, so it's all in the profile.
Like, that's your resume. Fill it out. Make sure you have everything about your baseball career and you. Like, that's how teams are going to sign you.
And we're here to like help make that happen. So like you just need to follow our guidance on that. And yeah. So in this case, it was easy. You just laid it all out. We didn't have to ask you any additional questions. It's like, all right, he sent us everything, in one shot. So what's the plan for you? Like, you can literally do this until the wheels fall off, right? So I'm just kind of curious to hear what your thoughts are moving forward with your two passions.
Yeah, no, it's I think initially, this was a trial year for me. I obviously wanted to see how everything would fit together. I was a little bit reticent just because I didn't know how business and baseball and like all these different things would fit together in like a day-to-day life, right? So that was my That was kind of like my mindset going in, and everything's just kind of gelled so well together that like, I'm super happy with the experience here, and I want to continue. Like I think just like business and kind of the opportunities I've had, I'm going to take things step by step, and continually reevaluate my situation versus what I want to do. But right now, like I've had honestly the summer of my life, like just everything. You have travel, you have I'm able to run a business and make money, and then obviously have the best baseball experience I've ever had. So I want to continue, and maybe that's winter ball in Australia, Argentina, and then come back for Euro round 2. I'm in, man. So we'll see what happens.
Love it. That's what I wanted to hear. So we'll just reserve you a spot on the Finkston and Prague Baseball Week roster.
100%. 100%. I don't even know what happens, but I'm coming back for those, no doubt.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it. Like I do have a couple business related questions, so if any of you aren't interested in that, feel free to tune out. But I would suggest sticking around because this guy's got it figured out, and we can all learn something from him. So
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know if it's all figured out, but
I mean, I don't know. Successful
in business,
playing business, like you're living a good life anyway. So how does one go from, all right, I'm working for a company, but before I go on, actually, how's your time?
I'm good. Yeah.
Right. How does one go from working for a consulting company to creating his own and being successful at it? Like, where do you get the clients from? I know there's probably something you can't just take them from the company you just worked from. So I'm just kind of curious, like how you went about that and how you built up your own successful business. I know that's a loaded question and you probably can't summarize it in a quick answer, but if you could give us any insight into that, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a great question. And I know a couple of guys have asked me that same thing. So, basically from when I had the idea of wanting to create my own thing versus actually doing it, a lot of steps had to happen along the way. So I think the biggest myth that I tell people is like, I think everyone, when they think about creating a business or going off on their own, think about kind of the superficial things first. And what I mean by that is like, what's my logo going to look like? What's my name going to be? What's my website look like? And like all that stuff doesn't matter. Like, to be completely honest, like the way that I did it, and again, I don't know if it's right, it's just the way that it worked for me. I basically said, I literally opened up a Google Doc and I wrote down all the skills and things I knew how to do, right, from 4 years in consulting. I said, these are all the things I know how to do. And basically I took that Google Doc and I created, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's called Upwork.com. Basically a place to hire freelancers. And
you say Fiverr?
Upwork.com, but same thing. Fiverr's the same.
Yeah.
All these freelance marketplaces. And I basically took that Google Doc of things I know how to do and I put it into an Upwork profile and I said, here are the things that I know how to do. I'm Steve. Like, here's my background. Does anyone want to hire me? Right. And like, it was as simple as that. I didn't start an LLC. I didn't, create a website. It was just like, here are the stuff I know how to do. Does anyone want to buy? So I think if you're looking to kind of go off on your own, my challenge is find out, figure out a way to make $1 online. If you can do that, you can replicate it, you can figure out the rest. But I think people get bogged down and like, scared of all the things you have to do to like create a business. And just like, dude, just what do you do well? And find someone who's interested. That's it. So I know it sounds simple. It's not that simple, but I would say break it down to bare bones as much as possible.
Love it.
That's awesome.
I love it. That's cool.
That
isn't simple, like, because there's so many like barriers to entry when you try to do all these other things. And that's as simple as like, you just throw yourself on one of these platforms like, hey, I'm good at this shit. So
yeah. And it's not like a long-term option to be like, like some people do it long-term, but like, to be honest, the money is not really good on those platforms. It's a race to the bottom. Like everyone's going down in price because, people are going to hire the cheapest person. So like, it's not a great long-term solution, to be honest, but it's a great way to get those first initial clients. And then you get those first initial clients, you get their testimonials, you're able to build your website, you're able to upscale a little bit, you're able to charge more, you're able to get off those platforms. Because like your whole goal should be to get off those platforms and be able to have your own ecosystem of clients, and that's where you make more money, and that's where you know, have longer term relationships. So like, it's a great way to start, but I wouldn't advise doing that for a long time. But you're right. Like, you have to, you know, throw yourself out there and see what sticks. And I'll be honest, like, I hit the first 3 projects I applied for, and I was like, oh, I'm a world beater. Like, this is going to be easy. And I sold everything I had in New York. I put my laptop in my backpack. I had a one-way ticket to Indonesia, right? So like, I was like, oh, 3 projects, like, crushed it. Like, let's go. This is going to be the best, you know, 10 years of my life to be a millionaire. I literally landed in Indonesia. I haven't changed anything. Like, I'm doing the same stuff. I'm applying the same way. And I do not get any money, do not win any projects for 3 months. The first 3 months of my digital nomad experience, crickets. And I did the same exact thing. I didn't tell people I was in Indonesia. I didn't like do anything different. And like, so those challenges are always going to come. Like, no matter if you have my background, if you don't, like, you're going to have that stuff happen to you. So I'm not trying to say it's all easy. It's all simple. It's a straight line. It's just like continually putting yourself out there and, you know, finding ways to you know, it's just like baseball. You fail and then you find a way to get past it. So there's going to be challenges for sure, but you build that muscle to get there.
Yeah. Is there, of all those countries you went to, is there one where you would say, maybe Indonesia, where like, ooh, it's super cheap to live here, this is a great starting point, like save up this much, go there with your business, maybe you're just, you know, working on Fiverr or whatever, making a few bucks here and there or whatever. Is there a place where that you would recommend is like, that's a good kind of starting point to start with, where you don't have a lot of expenses because it's super cheap to live there and you can build yourself up while being overseas?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a bit of a planner, as I'm sure Jimmy knows. I've barraged him with spreadsheets and stuff about where I want to play baseball. So what I did was I saved, I think it was like 12 months of like living expenses before I made this big jump. So it seems a little dramatic. I was like, oh, I sold all my stuff. It was a little bit more planned than that. But so I would say just like, you know, having that, you know, 9 to 12 month cushion, or even 6 months. Places in general where I would say it's pretty easy to get by with that would be Bali, Indonesia is where I went. And then Vietnam is great for it as well. Like, I lived a great life in Vietnam, you know, great apartment, like, you know, lived like a king for under 700 USD a month. Tbilisi, Georgia is also another great place. It's kind of off the beaten track a little bit, but it's a little bit better for time zones as well. And then Colombia is great. So I lived in Medellin for a little while. Pretty cheap there as well. So, you know, you'll find 2 digital nomad hotspots around. Typically the cheapest place with good internet, and those 4 places are great places to start.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. Like, Guatemala's on there, Costa Rica, Colombia. So I mean, a lot of these countries, there's baseball too. Hungary even, right? Like, so I mean, you know, some of these places are affordable, and you could also play some baseball. So really cool, man. I love it. Thanks for the interview. This was great, and we're going to be in touch. We're going to be in touch to talk about maybe making baseball jobs overseas a little more efficient. So
Okay. For you guys.
Everybody could use some Steve Anderson help, I believe. So what's the name of the website, in case anybody is interested, or like, you know, maybe their dad or maybe themselves, maybe they need somebody to evaluate their business and help them kind of get a clear path to what's next in their business step. Or maybe you could do the elevator pitch yourself of what it's about and what you can do for them.
Yeah, no. So I mean, a couple places where people can find me. So my business is called Colo Consulting, and you can find me at heycolo.com. But I also want to say, like, to everyone out there, you know, whether baseball players or not, or just people that randomly find this, is like, I love to be a resource for guys that are trying to figure it out. So not again, I swear I don't have it figured all figured out. Like, I'm still making up as I go, and I just want to make that very clear. But I want to help other guys too. So like, if I could be a resource for anyone who's interested in overseas baseball, interested in like starting a business, interested in just making money online, guys, like, seriously, please reach out to me. I'd love to help. So good place to find me is, actually, I have a personal website as well. It's Steve, STEVE dash Anderson.co. So maybe put it in the show notes too, but go on there, and my contact information is on there as well. So reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you guys can find me. But yeah, please reach out to me. I'd love to help anyone out for sure.
Awesome.
Love it. Well, that's awesome. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. I'm sure some people are going to reach out because I mean, most guys out there don't want to give up on the dream and continue to play. And if there's a way they can do it, then here's the motivation. So perfect, buddy. We'll be in touch then. I'm gonna hit the stop record, but thanks again for your time and it was a great interview.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate you guys for everything, and had a lot of fun chatting. And we'll chat again soon.
Awesome.